From things that shouldn't have been broadcasted, to analog horrors inspired by real-life events. In this video, I'll be covering analog horrors based on true stories. Viewer discretion is advised, and I'm Sir Chris. I explore the internet, and I make videos about it. Let's go. Hijackings. Imagine being alone in the middle of the night, watching your favorite episode of SpongeBob, as you already did several times. But this time something was different. Something that should have never happened. As huge as this topic is, to the point that it deserves its own video, we're still going to talk about it. It wouldn't be fair to talk about hijackings without mentioning Vibing Leaf, a specific channel here on YouTube that specializes on making horror videos. In the video Weird SpongeBob Hijack, it begins with the uploader named Nick telling the viewer that when he was young, he recalled seeing a weird hijacking that he had finally found after all those years. Said hijacking happened in the episode Jellyfish Hunter, where SpongeBob catches jellyfish for Mr. Krabs to use on the Krabby Patties. But when Mr. Krabs keeps repeating more, an unnerving face interrupts the episode. The face called the place that it was the SpongeBob Void, as it started to show distorted photos of SpongeBob, which then passes to SpongeBob saying, "Would you like to play? It feels pretty lonely in the sea." Before cutting to an unknown photo, and ending with the conclusion that the hijack went unnoticed by everyone except Nick and another unidentified user, turning it into a lost media. Although this one wasn't that disturbing, the same cannot be said to the strangest SpongeBob glitch ever recorded by WeekAlternate. WeekAlternate? In it, our protagonist, I'll be calling him X just for the sake of the explanation, was cleaning his attic to pack his things to move to another house. In the attic, he ended up finding his old camcorder that he used when he was younger to record his favorite television programs. From various recordings, only one stood out, a hijacking happening on Nickelodeon. In hopes of finding answers, X ends up posting the raw footage online, which cuts to the chase. It showed the episode The Secret Box, the episode where SpongeBob tries to see what was inside Patrick's secret box. But that episode was suffering from a lot of glitches, misplaced and missing audio, and even missing sprites. It doesn't get any better as the video goes on. The sprites of the characters break and simply stare at the viewer. Nickelodeon would stop and try to fix this issue as quickly as possible, sadly to no avail. The episode tries to return twice, but on the last time, a skull appears and the recording ends. The combination of confusion, unpredictability, and the anxiety of watching something that wasn't meant to be heard is so effective in my opinion. Although these episodes were not exactly inspired by a Nickelodeon hijacking, we can agree that the idea itself became popular because of previous hijackings that actually happened and the impact that they brought. Ganzfeld experiment. This one is self-explanatory. This analog horror is based on a real experiment that goes by the same name. The analog horror was created by Moth and only has 2 short episodes. It starts with a tape created by MVA, a company in Washington that focuses on supernatural science. The tape explains what the Ganzfeld experiment is, which I will take this opportunity to quickly explain it. Ganzfeld experiment is an experiment that consists of 2 individuals who undergo the process of sensory deprivation with the intention of transmitting an image to one another through impossible methods. In this dimension, these tests caused insanity in the guinea pigs, in which unintentionally, humanity now created something that they didn't want it to. And this is where the series ends. Not gonna lie, the end is kinda disappointing, like, it was getting really interesting. Oh well. Greylock. Greylock is an analog horror made by Rob Gavigan that I've already deep dived here on the channel. Go watch after this one. So I'll be quickly going over the most important details. Greylock tells us about a cult that had already existed for some years, composed by Semiodyne USA and the CIA, in which everything started to go downhill after John F. Kennedy refused both sides' proposals, the NIA program and the Operation Northwoods. Obviously, both parties were mad, but also afraid of Kennedy exposing said plans to the public. So John F. Kennedy gets killed, and then Johnson takes Kennedy's spot and accepts both projects. In this universe, Semiodyne USA creates the Project Stargate, which is inspired by a declassified project called Stargate Project. A project based on predicting the future or discovering things with the power of the mind. That did not work. But now back to the analog horror. Project Stargate is actually used in this world to make thought forms, the manifestation of energy and thoughts, with the intention of using them to protect the civilians of the United States. Or at least those were the lies that they were trying to sell. Because eventually, the Stopas attacked various cities, thus killing innocent people, making an unborn baby disappear. Like, sorry, I had to mention this. or targeting specific people who knew too much, like Arnold River, a man who escaped death on the Greylock mountain in Massachusetts after having discovered buried tunnels used by ancient tribes to make offerings to the devil. And from that moment on, we are left in the dark for now, since no more episodes have come out. Insanity Report. This one is heavy and you will see why. Viewer discretion is advised. Insanity Report is an analog horror created by Mythical Films. It tells us about a facility called Unit 371 in 1936, which was experimenting with bioweapons on prisoners of war. The unfortunate soul for this experiment was called Mu Yang, a 25-year-old adult who was captured from the village Pink Fang. Mu Yang would be exposed to the insanity gas in order to see how effective it was. On day 1, Mu Yang suffered with no effects. However, things would only get worse as the days progressed. On day 2, Mu Yang could be seen murmuring violent thoughts and having spasms. And on day 3, Mu Yang was no longer himself. Mu Yang could be seen yelling, being aggressive, and maniacally dancing, laughing, and crying. In the middle of the night, Mu Yang would wake up at 3 AM and start smashing floor tiles in an attempt to get an improvised weapon, which he later used to take him off, and leaving the following message before dying. Insanity is loud. I want to see my home, but I can only imagine fires burning my children alive, and my witnessing, my soul is already gone. And the video ends. If the video didn't already tell you what this was about, this analog horror was based on the most deadly, sickening, and one of the darkest experiments ever done by humanity. Unit 731 was one of the various secret facilities used for human experimentation by the Imperial Japan in 1936. These facilities carried the worst ever known to man. The prisoners of war, men, women, and children, were subjected to weapons and chemical tests. They would also be injected with various diseases to see the limits or what said disease would do if left untreated. Women were used as a stock so the scientists could do tests on the babies. Horrible stuff. Eventually, when Japan surrendered after the bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the staff started to destroy evidence, the rest of the prisoners, and burning and exploding buildings. It's estimated that this tragedy killed between 200,000 to 300,000 people. Wanna know the worst? The few staff that survived to get punished only got a slap on the wrist. The Boiled One Phenomenon. The Boiled One Phenomenon needs no introduction, but here's a breakdown for the two of you who don't know what this episode is about. The Boiled One Phenomenon tells us about a hijack that happened to a program created in the 90s, which for some reason began airing without a prior warning on August 13th, 2003. What seemed to be a mistake by the television station quickly turns out to be a hijack of a creepy and a dangerous abomination called Fan 228. The hijacking took place in Pennsylvania, and everyone who was watching the television at the time claimed that the creature spoke several languages. Initially, the victims reported that they couldn't sleep, and no matter how hard they tried, the creature's face would never leave their memory. But what seemed to be the light at the end of the tunnel actually turned out to be a train, because Fen tries to hijack again the next day, in which it makes Ephrata Branch, a company that apparently focuses on tracking this entity, turn off all power grids to prevent the spread of the message, thus being the reason for the Great Northeast blackout of 2003, which actually happened, leaving more than 50 million without power. The government ends up covering the real reason for this incident by saying that it happened due to a combination of factors. 12 days later, all viewers of the broadcast ended up suffering from pseudo-coma, the state where a person remains paralyzed even though they are conscious. One of the victims is the war veteran Job Zamperini, who in an interview confirms the tragic end that all the victims had to go through, forced to see this creepy creature staring at them for the rest of their lives. What a smart way to put something that actually happened in an analog horror. Project Nekton. Project Nekton is a short video made by Mythical Films. It takes us back to the time when the first underwater tests took place at the Mariana Trench in 1959. After some successful tests, the next one was to take place on the 23rd of January 1960, in what was supposed to be a record-breaking dive in a submarine called Trieste. At around 1:06 PM, the divers reached the deepest part of the ocean with only one small problem. A small crack in what I believe to be in one of the monitors when passing the 9,000 meters. Later in the dive, communications begin to suffer due to how deep the Mariana Trench is. Communications are eventually cut out completely with the control center, and the divers are left alone in the abyss, realizing that something hit the radar. They were not alone. And so the video ends. This video, as obvious as it is, was inspired in the real project by the same name. However, in our reality those tests were successful and nothing bad happened. And this was Analog Horrors based on true stories. Before you go, I just want to say that I have not added Monument Mythos to the list because I felt that would be kinda cheating because it would be an easy pick. If there's any Analog Horror that I've missed, please tell me right down in the comments. Thank you to all Patreon support upon, and you viewer, and take care my friend.